Alright class, so here we go. First video. I apologize if you can't understand me, but this is what we will cover. Your first homework assignment will be off of this, and your homework assignment, when I put it up on your Google Classroom, you will notice the highlighted problems. Those are the ones you will do. Everything else, it's up to you. If you want to have a little bit more practice, you can work on those, and I'll be glad to let you know if you did them correctly or not. Most of these early homeworks, just looking at your process and see how well you can figure them out. I want to see how you did it. So let's start with basics. Algebraic expressions. They're like a phrase made up of numbers and variables, and I've highlighted their variables. It means the letters. Okay, and when we ask you to evaluate some of these expressions, we're going to give you letters, values for these letters, which means you're going to have to use the substitution property. Okay, so when you evaluate, you will end up plugging in whatever value we give you. Say for instance, we have here on our examples, we have for problem number 1, and all of these are worked out for you already. We have, these are your variables and what the value of each variable is. Notice how when they went ahead and rewrote this expression, for every letter, say A equals 2, they put it in parentheses, B equals 4, they put in parentheses, squared, plus 7. And then they used PEMDAS or GEMDAS, whichever you wanna call it, your order of operations. Okay, so they worked out what's in the parentheses first. So 2 goes down 2. 4 squared ends up being 4 times 4 ends up being 16, and then plus 7. And then you just keep on simplifying. So what is 2 times 16? Well, it ends up being 32. And then the last part right here, if you follow your order of operations, 32 plus 7, and you get the magical answer of 39. Alright, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more examples that have been worked out for you. Let's go ahead and turn the page. Let's move on to the next section, and it's a continuance of these examples, but they'll be blank, and I'm going to work them out for you. Alright, here we go. Let's work on a couple of these problems. I'm not going to do all of them. I'm going to jump, we'll do number 7. I'm definitely going to do 11. Let's go with 10. Alright, so let's go with number 7. Alright, so we got a squared plus b squared over a minus b. Here are our values. So, here we go. A squared, which is 3 squared, plus b, which is 4 squared. And then we have 3 minus 4. Alright, so now we use PEMDAS. Let's solve what's inside the parentheses. 3 squared ends up being 9. Plus, and then we have 9, and then we have 4 squared, which is 16, all over 3 minus 4. Alright, so I'm going to move this process over here, because I write big. So what is 9 plus 16? 9 plus 16 ends up being 25. And then we have 3 minus 4. What is 3 minus 4? Negative 1. And our final answer ends up being negative 25. Okay, moving on to number 10. So you're looking over this and you may want to start on the homework. That's fine. So come tomorrow, which is Tuesday, you will ask me questions on this. I'm going to go over this again in class, and you'll have a chance to ask me questions on problems, and it doesn't have to be the ones that I worked on here. It could be, say you wanted me to work out number 9, then I'll be glad to do that. So here we go. Number 10. Here are our values. Let's fill in. So we have x squared, that's negative 3 squared minus 2 parentheses. Oh, we have another parentheses, so it's negative 3 minus, and then y is 4 parentheses, parentheses, minus, and then we have z, which is negative 1 to the 3rd power. Alright, so let's get rid of all the parentheses. We're doing PEMDAS first. So negative 3 squared, that's negative 3 times negative 3, that is 9. Minus, so let's take care of this here. So that means the 2 is going to come down, and we're going to have this big parenthesis. So it's negative 3 minus 4. So negative 3 minus 4 gives you, let's see. What would that be, people? Well, I guess I'm asking a computer here. So, anyways, negative 7. Moving on, and then negative 1 to the 3rd power. That's negative 1 times negative 1. Positive 1 times negative 1 again gives me a negative 1. So let's keep on solving parentheses. Alright, so that means we got to do this guy first. So we bring down the 9, we bring down the minus. Or actually, we don't bring down the minus. 2 times negative 7 ends up being negative 14. But then these two here cancel. So we're left with positive 14. So that means these two right here cancel, and it's plus 1. This ends up being 24. Alright. Now we're dealing with absolute value. These two look, 11 and 12 look practically the same. I think they are the same. They're just giving you different values to your variables. So let's look. Alright, so we have a negative, and then we have our variable a, which is negative 2 squared. Alright, let's write that better. 2 minus 2, and then parentheses, what is b? 3 times c, negative 3. Minus absolute value of whatever c is. Well, c is negative 3. Okay, so let's resolve all parentheses. Negative 2 squared, well, the negative comes down. Negative 2 squared ends up being positive 2. Then over here, we can actually resolve the entire section here. Negative 2 times 3 times negative 3. These two end up canceling the negative, so it's going to become positive. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 3 is 18. Then we have minus a negative, which is positive. Backtrack. Come on, people. So you have minus, but we got to resolve this here. This. So, absolute value of negative 3 is positive 3. Actually, I shouldn't write the absolute value. I should just write that. This ends up simplifying to just this. So then we get this. And our last answer ends up being 13. Okay, we will move on to the next part of this lesson. And that would be working with variables. We're going to be working with equations, one-step equation, two-step equations. Let's turn to that page. Alright, here we go. One-step equations. Notice all these little highlighted areas, annotations that I've made for you. The big thing is the golden rule of algebra is if you have an equation, which means there's an equal signs involved, when you solve any of these, whatever you do to one side of the equation, you got to do to the other. So if you take away from one side, you got to take away from the other. It's a balance. Or if you multiply, then you multiply. If you divide, you divide. What you do to one side, you do to the other. Now, when we're talking about solving, we're talking about leaving that variable by itself. Okay? We're leaving the letter by itself. So we need to get rid of everyone that's on his side and toss it over. On one-step equations, it's easy because it's just one step. So if you look at number one, actually, let's look at number one's fairly easy. It's straightforward. M plus 12 equals 10. Alright, how do I leave the m by itself? Well, I have to get rid of this plus 12, which means I have to undo what's happening. To undo that, I'm going to have to subtract. Well, that means I got to do what's on this side to this side. This gets rid of the 12 on that side, leaving me with my m. Then we proceed to resolve that side. 10 plus negative 12, or 10 minus 12, however you want to read it, is going to give you your final answer. Now let's take a gander. Let's look at number 4. Okay, number 4, you have a over 9 equals, or the fraction a over 9 equals negative 4. All right. Well, this a fraction. The operation is division, and you can see just from the notes, because the opposite of division is multiplication. So you have the a divided by the 9, okay, which means we gotta leave this letter by itself, so we gotta get rid of the 9. How do I get rid of the 9? The 9 is dividing, so we multiply. We're gonna multiply times 9, which means we got to do the same thing to both sides. That leaves your a by itself, check. And on this side, negative 4 times 9 gives you your negative 36. Fractions. Yay. This is a key word. You're going to hear this throughout the entire year of your life in math. Reciprocal. Actually, you'll hear it through entire life. To reciprocate something, which means to give back. All right, to flip it back. For fractions, it just means the flip of the fraction, to flip it. So how do you solve these? Doing the reciprocal is probably the easiest one, because I could break it down into the actual processes of each, and if you want to know that, I can do that tomorrow in the lesson. But let's look at number 5. Here we go. 2/3 x equals 10. So how am I going to get rid of that? Alright, well, I'm going to take the reciprocal of 2/3. Alright, and I'm going to multiply. And it's always multiplication when we have a fraction. So 3 over 2 times 2/3 gets rid of those guys. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So rules of multiplying a whole number and a fraction, you multiply the top two. So this gives me 30 over 2. 30 divided by 2 lends you to your final answer. Let's look at 8. So we're working on 8. You have negative 1/2 times m equals negative 9. So the reciprocal of negative 1/2 is, well, negative 2 over 1. They didn't write that here. I'll write it. Negative 2 over 1. The 1's cancel, the negative 2's cancel, and we're done. Which means this happens on this side. So these two multiply, leaving you with positive 18, because those two are negative, and you divide by 1, and you get your answer. If you have any questions on any of these, again, tomorrow is the perfect time. I will go over this lesson in person with you guys, well, in virtual, and it'll be your chance to ask me questions. Alright, two-step equations. And I put on there, still leaving the variable till the end when solving. Always begin on the side that has the variable. Then undo the operations to solve. So you're always looking. Alright, so we're going to look at that problem. 6x plus 8 equals 50. What are we doing? Well, we're solving for x. Alright, so we have to look, what side is the x on? Boom. There it is. So I'm going to leave the x till the end. Notice. So I'm going to leave this till the end, and I'm going to start with the plus 8. So I'm going to move that plus 8 by taking away 8. If I do it to one side, I got to do it to the other. So that brings down the 6x. 50 minus 8 gives you 42. 6 and x, those two are multiplying, so the opposite of multiplication is division, so I will divide by 6. That gets rid of that. Leaves me the x, but since I divided by 6, I have to divide by 6. 42 divided by 6 is 7. Let's see. Let's do number 12 as our last example. 7 minus 3y equals 34. We're looking at the y, which means we're going to get rid of, hold on. This is what we need to leave alone, the minus 3y. So if I'm going to leave that alone, I'm going to move this 7. He's positive, so how do I move a positive across? Well, I have to undo whichever's happening. So addition is happening, I got to do subtraction. So 7 becomes a negative 7 or minus 7. That gets rid of those two. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. 34 minus 7 gives me 27. And the minus 3y goes down. Do not forget to bring down that minus. Kids forget, students forget, even I forget. So you can catch me on a mistake, go ahead. I'm okay with it. Alright, negative 3 and y, multiplying. How do I break it? I divide. So these two are gone. The y stays by themselves. What I did there was divide by negative 3, which means I gotta do that to the other side. 27 divided by negative 3, and you have your answer. Again, any questions, ask me tomorrow. The homework, I will attach it to this assignment, so if you want to, you can get started on it. But it won't be due till Tuesday evening. It's not hard. Alright. Adios, folks.